It ran roughly a quarter of an hour, compressed Mary Shelley's novel into a feverish moral tale, and created its monster with one of early cinema's strangest effects. Then, it disappeared from ordinary circulation. Film books reproduced a small number of stills, but most viewers could not watch the movie itself. The only known print ended up with Wisconsin collector Alois Dettlaff, who held it privately for decades. By the time the Library of Congress acquired his collection in 2014, the first Frankenstein movie had survived its own version of the story, assembled from fragile material, hidden from the public, and unexpectedly brought back.
The Edison Company released Frankenstein in March 1910, directed by J. Searle Dawley and starring Charles Ogle as the creature. Contemporary advertising emphasized that the film avoided the novel's most repulsive details. This was not marketed as a gore picture. It was a moral and psychological adaptation for audiences who already recognized the book. In the film, Frankenstein creates the creature through an alchemical process, recoils from it, and ultimately defeats the monster when love purifies his mind. The story is simplified, but the image of a creation turning against its maker is unmistakable. The creation scene remains the film's signature. A human-shaped form appears to build itself from smoke, flame, and a bubbling mass inside a cabinet. The filmmakers achieved the transformation by burning a monster dummy, filming the collapse, and then reversing the footage.
The effect also gives the creature a different origin from later laboratory versions. It seems condensed from corruption, rather than electrically revived. In 1910, distributors treated a one-reel film as circulating inventory. Prints wore out, companies reorganized, and nitrate stock could decay or burn. There was no expectation that every title would remain available to future audiences. Frankenstein lasted in paper records and publicity images after its moving footage vanished. Historians knew the film existed. That is different from having a copy. The title became a classic example of a culturally important movie whose documentation outlived its access. Alois Dettlaff, a Wisconsin film collector, obtained a 35mm nitrate print during the mid-20th century. Accounts vary on the exact chain of ownership, so it is better to say he preserved the known copy than to invent a dramatic flea market discovery. Dettlaff understood its rarity and screened it at archival events. He also made versions available on home video and online late in his life. That publicity proved the film survived, but the unique source material remained tied to one private collection, with all the access and preservation risks that arrangement creates. This is an important distinction in digital lost media. By the early internet era, people could find low-resolution copies of Frankenstein. The film was no longer fully inaccessible. Yet the best surviving print, the object from which better restorations could be made, was still outside a major public institution. A compressed upload can preserve content while losing fine detail, frame edges, tint information, and evidence about the physical print. Seeing a movie is not the same as securing its source. After Dettlaff's death, the Library of Congress acquired his film collection in 2014. Archivists could inspect the Frankenstein print directly, scan it with modern equipment, stabilize the image, and document the element. The library released a new restoration in 2018. Compared with older circulating copies, the restoration offered a clearer and more complete view of the frame. It also placed the film within an institution responsible for long-term storage, rather than leaving its survival dependent on one person's estate. The phrase "only known print" can sound as though one physical reel is all that now exists. In practice, preservation creates duplicate film elements, digital masters, access files, and public copies. The historical point is that those descendants trace back to a unique surviving source. If Dettlaff's print had decomposed before duplication, the still photographs might be all we had. Once the print was scanned and archived, the risk changed. No single hard drive or film canister should again hold the entire movie's future. Charles Ogle's creature has wild hair, a clawed silhouette, and a face closer to a theatrical goblin than Universal's later design. The film does not contain neck bolts, an electrical storm, or the laboratory vocabulary that popular culture now associates with Frankenstein. That makes it more than a curiosity. It shows how open the story still was before one adaptation established the visual template. Recovering early versions lets us see decisions that later success made seem inevitable. Frankenstein did not disappear without leaving records. Edison advertising described the story, production stills circulated, and film historians knew that Charles Ogle had played the creature. Those traces prevented the title from becoming a purely invented legend, but they also encouraged a false sense that the surviving information was equivalent to the movie. It was not. The catalog could tell researchers how Edison marketed the transformation as a moral vision. It could not reproduce the pacing, the reverse photography effect, or Ogle's physical performance. When Dettlaff's print became viewable, details that had been reduced to one famous still became a continuous piece of early film language. Paper evidence kept the search target stable. The print answered what the paper could not. Alois Dettlaff deserves credit for preserving the only print known to survive, but ownership and access were complicated. For years, researchers knew the film existed in his collection, while copies circulated in uneven, sometimes disputed forms. That is different from a film being totally lost, and different again from stable public preservation. After the Library of Congress acquired the broader Dettlaff collection in 2014, the element could be cataloged, scanned, and maintained inside an institution built for long-term access. The transition did not erase the collector's role. It completed it. A unique object can be saved physically in a house and remain vulnerable culturally until documentation, preservation files, and reliable viewing copies exist in more than one place. The most famous sequence shows a grotesque body assembling inside a cauldron. The production burned or collapsed a prepared figure, photographed the action, and reversed the film, so destruction became creation. Early viewers did not need digital compositing to see an impossible transformation. They needed a camera, a practical effect, and the realization that time itself could be edited. The recovered print lets historians study the complete setup and payoff instead of one still. It also shows how the adaptation externalized Frankenstein's guilty imagination, turning the monster into something produced as much by his mind as by science. The Library of Congress selected the 1910 Frankenstein for the National Film Registry after the surviving element entered a more stable preservation environment. Registry status does not repair nitrate or settle every ownership question, but it records that this short is culturally and historically significant. A collector preserved it first, public archives later secured and described it, and national recognition arrived after decades in which the movie was known mainly through stills and rumor. Frankenstein is a story about responsibility for what we create. The 1910 film adds a quieter question: who is responsible for what we inherit? A company released it and moved on. A collector protected the one known print, but kept the source largely under private control. An archive eventually secured and restored it. Each stage was imperfect, yet together they carried 15 minutes of 1910 cinema into the present. The monster did not return through lightning. It returned because fragile nitrate kept passing from one caretaker to the next.